Hello and welcome back to the Timeline Astrology podcast with myself, Gary O'Toole. I'm very pleased to welcome back to the show Kishori. We've had Kishori on before, speaking all about her epic poem, The Song of Rahu. And we've begun this Maps of Consciousness series where we explore Rahu in each of the houses of astrology. We've been through the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and now we're moving on to the sixth house. So the sixth house can certainly present some problems, but as we will hear Kishori describe how we can bring those into the heart field and how we can actually create a lot of precision and balance in our lives. So without further ado, here's Kishori. Welcome, Kishori. It's been a while. I really appreciate you coming on again because I know that you're in the middle of a house move and settling and all of that. But I just think it's just highly appropriate to be talking about this now, Rahu in the sixth, when you're dealing with all the everyday stuff. It's everyday stuff, sixth house.
It's completely fascinating to me. And I'm actually settling more than moving. I'm just observing how different it is here and how much, in the few minutes we've already talked, how much it is I'm living Rahu in the sixth. It's very strange because, of course, I've not got, my personal chart has not got Rahu in the sixth, but I suspect it's because we are focusing on it, even unconsciously. It doesn't matter because I haven't hardly thought about it. Been too busy to think about Rahu consciously. But
well, we could go into that a bit if you wanted to share that about your chart. But like we have this obviously in astrology, the birth chart, which is just like a blueprint for our lives. But then we also have the ongoing transits, which impact that they sweep in and affect certain areas of our life. So in actual fact, you can say that actually Rahu is influencing this part of your life.
It definitely.
Right now, by transit, I mean in astrology.
Oh, right. Well, it might be fun to look at that at some point.
But I mean, what is sixth house? Maybe I should just again like list out a few things as I normally do, jump in, and then I know that people who listen to this are looking forward to this because I've been getting messages from people who are like noticing the time lag between the fifth house and the sixth, and are like, when are you doing the sixth? So it's like people are getting so they kind of people are getting into it and have their own questions as well. So the thing about the sixth is moving on from the fifth, and I'll maybe just remind people about what we talked about the fifth, about the heart and creativity and expressing, and what you talked about in terms of not just creating something but giving birth to something, like breathing life into it. But then you have to, maybe not have to, you'll give me your take. I'm sure I really need to hear your take on this actually, because this is the one area where you can, or the first house of the zodiac, where you can get really bogged down, right? You get the thing, you give birth to the child, the project you're doing whatever, and then you have to day in, day out stick with it and work on it and improve it and do this with it. And like if it's a baby, you're changing the nappies. If it's whatever, you're working on it every day. So that's the sixth house. Basically, it's the day in, day out drudgery, many people would call it, and routines that we have to, and we want to, as we mentioned in the last podcast, we want to work on for that thing we love. Basically, that's the sixth house in a nutshell.
Yes.
Now we can get into other things as well, because I mean, I don't want to skirt around the more obvious things of the sixth house that represent real problems, like the things we do every day that causes problems, i.e. addictions, vices, bad habits, right? That's also sixth house. So I don't want to skirt around that because we're talking about Rahu. So it is a shadow like aspect that we have to address, things like addictions. But what I've also seen,
I just want to say, all the things that we think we don't have power over, we don't have control over, you know, those, it's almost like it's a broad brush. And the word that came to me as I'm dealing with the settling in, putting things in order, is almost total chaos. And then the pleasure of every tiny little thing that I put in place. I think, this is going to stay now. I'm stabilizing. I'm at a place in my life where for the first time, I bought a little house, a Goldilocks house, just for me. If I can have a person to stay, but I've no assigned room for it. And it's like the pleasure of picking out something and say, stay. And that's, in a nutshell, it's been chaos, but it's not. It's noticing that the chaos existed beneath the syrup, what I call the syrup on shit life, you know. It's always there.
Syrup on shit is probably the best phrase to apply to the sixth house. Let's face it. Like, I mean, it is the shit we're not dealing with. It comes up, but the eighth house is more specifically the shit.
We'll
but
get there. We'll
get there. But before then, you know, it's the kind of drudgery, like that everyday stuff that we have to do. But the other thing about, like I said, about addictions and vices and all of that, things that we probably, you know, could do without, let's face it. Rahu in the sixth.
We can't do without any of it.
Say again?
I said, we could do without. We can't do without any of it. We'd sit there in our Euroboric state, believing all was tickety-boo, but it's not. It's the past imagining to be resolved. So we can't do without the shadow. We can't do without the shit. We can't. The shit is what? It's the grit in the oyster. Now, what are we doing with our life? Are we wanting just to be comfortable? Or are we going, oh yeah, all right, I'm willing to be disrupted? Because under the disruption, or after the disruption, there's a new order emerges. It might seem more challenging than before, because we were in a smaller, I don't know. I had a bigger house for chaos, and it wasn't showing up so much. Come into a little tiny house and condense myself, and wow, I've got what I call my utility cupboard. It's a magic cupboard. There's not much storage in this house, so I've had to work a jigsaw with a nail here and a hook there and this, and it's all in one tiny cupboard. All my chaos now in order. You know, the washing then and this and that. And it's fascinating to see how it's playing out in material form. So there you go.
But that is exactly it. That is, you know, when you say about placing something and putting it there and allowing it to settle, you know, and that for me feels like it's a really good way of, you know, and we just talked about before we came on this book I'm reading about habits. There's so many of those books out at the moment because people want to obviously develop good habits. But this Atomic Habits, it's called, James Clear. And, you know, it's a very simple idea, but this idea that it's all those tiny little things that we do every day. And he says about doing something for just 2 minutes. That's it. Even if you want to do it for longer, just do it for 2 minutes.
It's it's that act of precision, isn't it? That pinpointing this and this only. And when I guess it's a dream, I suppose, but the idea of being able to be so transparent and so clear and so ordered that you could respond to what I talk about as the keala, the impulse of the moment. Now, if we responded to every single impulse, like you imagine a butterfly might do, you know, this crooked path, we'd end up in a worse state because we're not clear enough to respond to every little impulse. We have to go through that layer of mind that says, I don't think I ought to jump off the house roof and fly yet because I haven't yet downloaded the ability to fly because I'm too much hanging on, too much ballast. but it's like that. The precision, as the I Ching calls it, the taming power of the small, the precise thing, you know. So you can't be completely in responding without some kind of level of mind in 3D land because we can't. We still have to check that, you know, that there's something beneath your foot as you walk.
Right. But the thing, what strikes me about the sixth house more than anything, and having, you know, looked at people who have that in their birth chart, for example, and in myself as well, because we all have it. You know, this is the thing. Or if we don't have it now, we're going to have it at some point. Is when because you like this precision and just, you know, putting our feet firmly on the ground and doing whatever it is we're doing. But with Rahu, its tendency to exaggerate and increase, or seem to, and perhaps even obsess about those little things, those little tiny little details. It's like everything piles up and it's all a big problem now, whereas actually they're only very small problems that all pile up into lots of problems, then creates an issue. For example, like you in your new house. No, I mean, I'm sure that you probably could think sometimes, oh, I just want to walk away from this and come back when it's all done. But it's like at the other side of it, it's like you could also get very bogged down in all those little things, which are just little things.
This house is for me to actually do it, to bring it into form. I lived a lot of my life a bit out of my body, you know, I mean, not much, but, and here it's not come back when it's already done. It's somehow finding the way to enjoy the pleasure of the doing, of the action that comes from the desire, you know, finessing it so that you can do it without any sense of effort. It has to become effortless. In fact, our life has to become effortless. We have to learn to intend it, intend it and allow. You know, like pointing your hands when you're doing breaststroke swimming, you just point and then let the body follow rather than struggle. And it's the game of life, refining. I'm refining myself, the way that I engage with everything, the way I'm learning to walk differently, and all of it. And I see it so intensified, it's condensed. And that's what I think about when you spoke about the beginning of Rahu in the sixth. It's a condensation of things that have been so spread out that you might not have noticed them. You know, if you've got a lot of junk, it's about 10 cupboards, and you get it all in one, then you go, oh my goodness, you know. It's the living through it now, the willing to embody the fact that we are a bit jumbled up, but that it's, if you don't see it, like if you don't see the dirt on the windows, you can't clean them. You know, same with that's what I feel in my life right now anyway.
This is fascinating because it's like it's really tying in with what I see in the chart in terms of like Rahu in the sixth being this seesawing back and forth between like avoiding issues,
yes,
and then obsessing about problems, whereas
yes,
you're speaking about being in it, dealing with it, but not like, you know, getting bogged down in it either.
like it's like playing, for me, I go back to the house because this is where I'm playing out on this little house. It's like a doll's house. You know, you're getting it so precise that you can enjoy the detail of the tininess rather than, oh my God, I wish I got an extra bedroom. You go, oh no, let's make it, I don't know, dinky. I mean, toy town. And the whole of this town feels energetically. Remember you said that it looked clearer than another house, the energy. It's like living in Toy Town, like Mr. Bun the Baker and Mr. You know,
yeah.
it's just like that here.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because it's also like it's like you say, like it is a bit like playing games.
Yes.
It's about let's put this here and do this, and this person
Yes,
comes to fix this
yes,
and do
yes,
this.
yes.
But let's not beat about the bush though. Let's talk about maybe the darker, quote unquote, darker side of Rahu in the sixth, and
Yes.
things like addiction and so on. And you know, I mean, it can get very dark. Let's face it. I remember one person who had Rahu in the sixth in her chart, and her eyes would light up when you would talk about illness. You know, it's like that was her thing. This is the other side of it, that people can get obsessed about problems as well, and illnesses, and oh, this person has this condition. She was always very obsessed about, or interested, shall we say, in unusual diseases. You can think about that kind of way. So it's like that was her thing.
My sense is that, let's talk about health and disease, and it's like turning up the dimmer switch. Like I said on the chaos, you're turning up the dimmer switch. So you have to be very careful when you come to these apparent intensifications in life. And you have to take it to the place where they don't exist, the heart frequency. Not just the heart, but the heart frequency. And you have to take it and see through the eyes of the heart. And so that you can experience Rahu being an enormous gift, because once this is dealt with, there is a way of it's becoming really solidly secure in your life, steady, a real foundation. Because if you can handle the intensity of a real heavy addiction through the heart frequency in Rahu, and just trust into it enough to stop the struggling and the fighting and etc. So whether it's, I don't know, drugs or chocolate biscuits or whatever it might be, it's like stop the judgment, take it to the heart. I gave all my students last week a beautiful filigree golden blanket, and any considered or experienced problem, state, relationship, whatever, to put it in the middle and wrap it all in the filigree gold and put it in the heart. And without exception, those who are playing with it say, it's fantastic. Why didn't you give us this before? This is great. It didn't occur to me to say it before that. I mean, I've got huge treasure chest of things to give, but if it doesn't come into my awareness, like everything exists in quantum, we all know it all anyway. But if it doesn't come up in for consideration, you don't think of the shortcut. But having said that, anything at all that really bothers you, if you stop letting it bother you and say, oh, well, so I eat 10 packets of chocolate biscuits or something far darker, though chocolate biscuits can be pretty addictive, I suppose, is it not make the judgment, but to take it to the heart, change your whatever you're doing, change the frequency, go for a walk, go for a movie, have a whatever you can think of to change that frequency. And before you do that, just simply without anything, just wrap it up, put it in the heart frequency, and you will find that when you go back, there's been some change, however minuscule. Then you honor the tiniest little shift. So maybe you only have 1 packet instead of 10. Okay, but you're still eating them. So fine. The minutest little shift is what you have to feel content with or grateful for, or go, yeah, that's the way, that's the way. And so that little bit of detachment from the situation, that little bit of gratitude, that little creates that flow. As you know, I've said this before, there are 2 ways, it seems. There's the energy outflow, and there's the desire to, or the sucking in, the place of apparent lack and the place of expression from the abundant state that is our natural state. But only one is real. The lack state is not real. It's an experience, but it's not a reality. And as we were saying, I think in the 5th house, it's all expression. So even the way that you calmly engage with the fact that you're addicted to getting speeding tickets at 100 miles an hour, or whatever it might be, if you take away that judgment or that it should not be, and go, oh, that's interesting, just enough to make a little detachment, take it to the heart frequency. That means just gather it up so it's contained, a filigree blanket or a golden box, put it in the heart. When you come back to it, you'll find there's been a shift. You honor the tiniest shift. This is the way we were talking about routines. We'll come back to it in a minute. It's the same thing with everything. Honor the baby steps.
This makes a lot of sense to me. And also, I think it's really important because oftentimes I imagine, and certainly for myself too, when I have a problem, it either has to be like, get rid of the problem completely, like now, or, I'm not happy or whatever it is. So like what you're saying there makes so much sense, because like with the atomic habits, like just making 2-minute habits every day, it's better to, like you say, just notice a small shift. All it takes is just a small shift, and then another small shift, and another, and you're on your way.
Happy, the feeling, feel content that that little shift is pointing you in the direction, you know? So you feeling the gratitude or the thankfulness for that particular little shift, it is like that ratchet on the Himalayan railway when you go up and you can't slip back, because energy flows out. Energy doesn't suck in. Although it seems to, there is no lack. We have experiences of things like lack, like addiction, but they aren't real. They are koans that you, the being, has set up for your entertainment, for your growth, for your pleasure, for your play with your doll's house. I mean, jigsaws. Why on earth do we do jigsaws? You've got a beautiful, somebody smashes it into 1,000 pieces, and then you have the pleasure of putting it all together again. That's what we do. We put our life into little fragments, you know, with the Big Bang, and that Big Bang can be replicated in everybody's life, and you end up with a few little pieces, and you can see them in your birth chart, and you go, all right, how am I going to do this jigsaw? How am I going to play this game of cards? And it's when you can take it as lightly as that, then things become much more manageable. They resolve themselves. But if you are struggling and go, oh my God, I did that again and again, and I'm still doing it, and I'm still, you know, overdosing on this or that or the other, still addicted. Remember the old story about can I smoke when I'm meditating?
Can I smoke when I'm meditating?
Yes, or can I meditate while I'm smoking? I mean, let's say you want to give up smoking.
Right.
Right? And you're not managing because you're totally addicted.
Well, I can talk about that because I actually used to smoke. And what happened for me was I tried for many years to give up, and that didn't work. But when I stopped trying, and my energies just shifted somewhere else, and I was just focusing on other things, and it sort of dropped away. And it was through meditation that it dropped away.
Okay, so the thing is, you want something to change in your life, and you're working very hard, going, I don't know, 10 hours a week to the gym or whatever it is you're doing, and you're putting effort into it. Any effort will cause it to persist, anything. So if you say, I want this to happen, I really know that this new state or new situation would more fully express what I want to create in my work of art, my life. So this is my choice. You write it in your magic book, or you go into meditation, you see it happening, or whatever it is, some way of recording, like you said, tell people, tell your friends that's what you're going to do, or you are doing. It's picking the state, writing it down, or speaking it, or declaring it to someone, and then letting it go. The old idea of, you remember we used to write little messages on a balloon and let it go into the sky, or you write something on a bit of paper and you burn it. That symbolic letting go is what we have to do with Mr. Frosty Breath, the mind that gets us into such a tangle. It's your mind that judges, this should not be. I should have sorted this by now at my age or my state, or you know. But if you write down, or you choose the state that you want, whether it's health, relationship, entertainment, money, anything, you choose the state. Don't do a very long one, but do a little 30-second mini movie in your mind, write it down, let it go. Now and again, you can have a look, and you'll find that it will change on its own when you let it go into the heart field, where all no problems exist. They just don't exist. It's not that they are resolved. They never existed in the first place.
I get a strong sense of that, but I don't know if I was consciously doing that in my life. I mean, I wasn't conscious. It was happening. I was doing it, but I am very regimented as a person. And so I'm the type of person who has lists, and I have like my diary, my Google Calendar and all of that. And if it's not put in a diary or it's not on a list, I'm not going to do it, basically. But then like you say, I do have also on the other side this sense of letting it go as well, because once I put it in a list, I know that it's done on
It's
some
out of your
level.
mind, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
And it will. The your what I call something's called the inner file manager. It's not me. It just gets on and does it. Once I've given my order, my command as empress of my life, it will happen.
Mm.
And if I've got too much emotion invested in it, or too much struggle, and it just takes longer. So the thing to do, if you want to do anything, is to imagine yourself, in your new state, relaxed, totally trusting that once you've given your order in your empire, your life, that will happen. When you have it in a relaxed way, with a feeling, you imagine yourself in that state, and then let that go, and that state will automatically birth itself.
Mm.
So your new state is not someone that's totally regimented, but someone that is easy with that, and it's useful to you. Because so far at the state, let's talk about, you're talking about your regimentation. At this stage in your play, your life, your game, it's serving you. There may come a time in the future when you're so cool and integrated and chilled out, and that all you have to do is give a thought to it, not even bother to write it down, because you're so in the moment, like a great yogi might, like I said before, give someone the perfume from his hand, and all of a sudden he wants jasmine perfume, and he says, there you are, opens his hand, and there's the jasmine perfume. He's so in tune with everything. Or like, what was it, Nim Karoli Baba? Was it him or Nityananda walked into a jungle with a swamp. Somebody asked him for some money to pay some debt, and he just walks in, and with all the alligators and whatever, and he picks out a bag of gold. Now, did he imagine that there? Did he know it was there? It doesn't make any difference. He's so in alignment with the environment that he's radiating, that he knows exactly where everything is. And we can become like that ultimately, to have integrated the whole of your creation, the whole of your life.
That is so important a point, because sixth house obviously is also death.
Yes, debt the same. It's a state. It's all of it a state. So let's see. You have a debt, or you're having you've created that experience, not consciously, obviously, but somewhere there is an assignment for this koan. If you are someone who is awakening and is consciously living, you want to eliminate the debt, because debt is something you feel you haven't got much control over, or not enough control. But what do you want? The answer is, I want simplicity, order, liberation, freedom, whatever it is, order. I want to be in charge of my life. That when I give the word, when I say, so it is. As I see it, so I choose it to be. And the debt is gone in some magical way, because it's about us waking up to see that we are innately the power of our life. We are the power, we are the Shakti. We're not just a little bit part actor, leaf in the wind. We do have, not downloaded or uploaded, whichever one you want to say, fully the ability, like I'm playing with my life, like you know innately all of these things I'm saying, because you recognize them. Not new to you, you're not learning anything. You're just, oh yeah, you're just reiterating something that you already know. I know you know.
But it's also really helpful to hear you speak of something that I know that I don't know that I know.
That's right, because it's the mind. Years and years ago, it was I was told from within, the mind is also a child of the heart, and the mind deserves to know. The mind, it's not just about sit down, keep quiet, and obey me, or follow your guru, or just trust. No, you've got to make those links ultimately, that the mind and the heart are two expressions. They are all expressions and they need integrating. Not that I've got a mind over here that's quite brilliant I could use now and again, and yet I'm completely discombobulated somewhere else because I just haven't got it all joined up. We're joining up the pieces, and everyone is playing that game. Even great masters. I remember looking at seeing a master sitting on a golden throne in some particular place in India, and thinking, he's an archetype. An archetype is great, knows it all, but hasn't lived it through. Like the story of the yogi that had meditated for, I don't know, 50 years in a cave in the Himalaya. And he wakes up one day and he goes, oh, I'm liberated, I'm free. He runs down the hill to the well, and there's a beautiful young girl, she's actually a prostitute, at the well, and he's going, and he runs after her because he hasn't lived it out.
Oh, this is such an important point. I really need to hold on this, because when I first started, or before I began my Rahu cycle, I was being told things like, you know, what it's like. It can create these extremes and, you know, addictions and obsessions and all of these kinds of things. So the reason why I'm so regimented is, in fact, because I'm trying to stay on top of it, whatever the hell that means. So it's like, because it seems to me that when I let things go, life seems quite chaotic in this Rahu cycle in my life, right? And I've seen that over and over again with people I read charts for. So it's not just me, right? But almost like I'm overdoing that, kind of wanting to kind of keep everything in check and not letting it go crazy. With Rahu and addictions or anything, or the story you just told about, you know, like coming down from the meditation and seeing, you know, a woman and, like, you know, overcome, and, you know, he hadn't really fully gone there, right? That for me just struck a chord, because I have always had this sense coming into this Rahu cycle in my life that if I don't, quote unquote, go there, I am not really going to fully satisfy that. In fact, I'm never going to satisfy it fully anyway. So I've almost gone the opposite extreme. I've almost like, whatever impulse comes up, go for it, but do it mindfully. Right? So because go for it, do it fully, like before you, maybe not to the point where like it's labeled an addiction, but like mindfully go into this thing and fully experience it to the point where you're done, like you are really done with it.
Absolutely. Perfect. That's exactly right. If you live it to the full, you only need to experience something once. So you see, addiction is because you haven't got the pleasure out of what it is that you want. And you keep on and on and on and on and on.
Right, because this book I was telling you about, the Dopamine Nation book, which is basically, her point is, the psychiatrist's point is that pleasure and pain are basically so intertwined in the brain that when you have so much pleasure, there's a balance that's tipped, and then pain has to kick in to bring it back into balance. This is like a self-organizing system, right? So it's like, I know what you're saying about saying you fully experience it and it's done, but it's never done. That's the thing. It's never, ever done.
Nothing's ever done. The game is never over because we're playing it for the sake of the game. You know, there's always another level. We're in the mega multi-space invaders to infinity. And how nothing can ever die, and it can never be finished, and we can never destroy ourselves, because what we are is indestructible.
It's never done, or when it's done, you're dead.
Well,
when it's done, you're not here anymore, right? Okay. So when we're living in this human experience, because I remember saying this to someone before, and I didn't even know where this came from, because I had such a sense of, actually, life is full of just, you have to do this, pay the bills, do this and that. And I just said to this person who was like, oh, I just can't handle all these issues right now. And I was like, well, when it's done, you're dead. And she got that, though. Maybe she needed to hear it right then.
And this, yes, when you're no longer dancing, you have to keep dancing until you stop. And then you dance on some other planes, some other levels, some other, you know, that's not within time, it's timeless. This is one frequency that we experience here in the body. When the body's done, you're not done.
But what about, well, let's just talk about it in terms of, like, on a practical level. What about someone who has not been able to overcome their addiction to whatever substance or thing, whatever it is, and they die from that?
Well,
would you say in that case, well, in that case, you know, it's done?
That is a very interesting phenomenon, because I don't see anybody dies, because there's only one person, and we are all frequencies or expressions of that one. So if a particular frequency, these states, these frequencies all exist, and the little bit of consciousness that I am, that you are, you go and explore all these states. You know, you have to play every part, as Shakespeare says, one man in his time plays many parts, but they are infinite frequencies. And it's like we are the being that is totally addicted, if you like, to coming back and having another go. Well, can I experience it this way? And how can I experience it that way? Because the sun shines on everyone, everything, every single state. It doesn't matter in consciousness. If it matters to you, your innate embodied, then yes, you have to find the way. You do, and you will ultimately find the way, because what you are is so much more than this. I mean, we'll go into endless, well, we could keep forever talking about Advaita Vedanta and the non-dual state, but if you have a desire, the way to play this game is to surf the heart frequency, is to bring everything to that state. That's what I've said all along. Whatever house we're in with the Rahu, it's simply, this state now is simply a condensation for us to be able to see it more clearly, to make our choice. It's almost like someone is saying, this little mess is coming up to be seen now more intensely. It's going to irritate you even more until you do something, rather than paint it over with a layer of syrup. You're going to look at it and go, oh, do you want it? So what I call the inner file manager brings it up, and you can go yes or no. And it is as simple as that. But only when you're in neutral, when you're in that state of what I call sunny inner weather, nice English spring day, you know, not too hot, not too cold, in balance. We have to learn to live in that balance, so that you're not pulling it one way or the other, pushing or pulling. And Rahu, in the Song of Rahu, says that very clearly. No amount of avoiding, conniving, squirming, skiving, pushing it away, pulling it to you. No, you have to make the choice. What state do I want? What do I ultimately want to experience? And if what you want is to get through it more quickly or resolve, because it really, really is, that hair shirt is really bothering you, you have to take it to the heart, choose the state that you want to experience, feel it real, and then let it happen, because it will. It's like, you know, that what I said, pointing your hands towards the direction you want to go, swimming breaststroke, and let your body follow. You let it happen. You can't push and pull at things when there is this, especially when there is this deep emotional instability, longing, as we say in Rahu, there's some avoiding or conniving, squirming, skiving, delaying, hiding, guiltily lying. You either attempt to cover it up or bring it towards you by resisting. A calm, quiet space, like go for a walk in nature, put your feet up, do something different, and then take it to the heart. And even if the mind says, oh, what use is that going to be? Just put your hand on your heart. That's no use. But it takes a little practice to just always go to the place where it can be resolved. Like that lady who lost her needle, you know, and she was looking for it in the street under the lamp. The neighbors come around, come and tell us exactly where you lost it, old lady. She says, oh, didn't lose it out here, lost in the house. And they go, duh, it's dark in there.
I love that one.
But you see what I mean? So if you make your ultimate objective, or the immediate objective, being able to be calm and witness what's going on and know that you are causing it. I had a day here and every single thing went wrong. Every workman changes schedule and this and that and the other. And then some friend, or not friend, acquaintance said, oh, I'm going to ask people to help you. And I said, no help. Try and give me some help in this state and we'll cause more chaos. The only person who can make this calm is me to go to sleep, have a rest, make my frequency that I'm transmitting is peace, calm, and everybody else around me gets into order. That is the same. It's not just me. I know that. I practiced it. But I tell you, anybody that's listening, if it's chaos around you, get quiet, do something else, do something you like, and start to radiate every little piezoelectric spark from every cell in your body, sending peace, calm, order, abundance, freedom. As I talk about the yogic flowers, your life comes from you. You get to the state where you're not transmitting tension, disorder, chaos, exhaustion. And then the rest will calm down. You know this, Mr. Gary O'Toole, you know this so well.
I do, but it's just great to
all the time because I know that you know it all, you see.
Yes, but it's not articulated this way to me.
No, I'll
often,
agree.
if ever. Yeah. So people don't articulate this. I mean, that's exactly, the thing, and the image I have now in my mind is of a swimmer, and that kind of, yes, pushing through, gliding, and then pushing through and gliding. And this kind of, and even in astrology, that would relate to the signs Virgo and Pisces, because Virgo is the natural sixth sign of the zodiac. It's all about order and precision and improvement. And yes. Pisces is the ocean, and it's the letting go and into the mystery of it all,
Yes.
One other thing I want to bring up with sixth house, which is, I'm sure people listening to this, if I didn't bring it up, they'd be a bit miffed, is enemies.
Yes.
So enemies come under the sixth house. And of course, there are no enemies. There is all our own inner demons, as my teacher, Pearl Finn, used to say. There are our own inner demons that obviously get projected out there, and they are now our enemies. But of course, Rahu in the sixth can show major issues there of projection. And it's like, it's that person's fault. It's this person. They didn't show up on time and this didn't happen or whatever, or they said this to me. And, what do you think about Rahu and in terms of this projection and the enemies? I know what you talk about Rahu being the radical withdrawal of projection. What would you say about it in the sixth? Would that be even more important than anywhere?
Yes, you might find them yourself being even more irritated or more arguments, but they're not real. Remember, it's an experience you're creating for yourself. So the process of communicating at the heart or communion at the heart, it's a very simple little exercise. I think there might be a video of it on Magic Makeover page. I don't know. I'll have a look. Remind me. But so you sit yourself down in a imaginary room, and you put yourself here and your enemy on a chair opposite you or wherever you want to be. And then you say exactly what you feel. You could even get up and kill them if you want to. It doesn't matter. And then you swap and be the enemy speaking back to you. You do that 2 or 3 times, a little gestalt conversation or in exchange. And then you drop into your own heart. You find your little ET finger, your little star of light that's brilliant, always going, sparking all the time, and connect to that star in the heart of the one opposite. It's a lovely little game to play because it always works. And then the heart stars merge. And then you can experience so many things. But what you will experience is the enemy opposite you is the other side of the coin. It's something that you have got to realize and integrate, that you've set up for yourself. If you see your enemies as your biggest opportunity for awakening, you know this bit, those words of Christ, love those who persecute you, love your enemies. It's not so that you could be a good person. You don't love your enemies to be good or to be, a saint or something, because it benefits you. It benefits the embodiment, the person that you are, if you will play that game of seeing what it is in you. And it's not difficult to do with a very little practice. I haven't only sketched that out, but I'll have a look. There might be a little video somewhere that I can find, but we'll talk about it.
But it makes sense. It makes perfect sense to do that.
Because the enemy is your biggest gift. It's for you to bring up the shadow of what you're not seeing, the bit that you're blind, and your enemy will reveal that to you. And when you go, oh yeah, and all you need to do is to notice it, because once it comes into consciousness, once it's come out of the blind spot, the game's over as far as that is concerned. It's just over. So if you fall out with somebody leaves you, you remember I said to you once, no, it wasn't you. No, it was somebody else, sorry. It was how I went through a period, and people, I remember saying to my friend, Russell, I said, people either love me or hate me. What's going on? It was a period that was obviously very intense of dealing with people separating themselves. And it's what's going on at the moment in the world. There's so much alienation and separation in relationships, in families. It's the end times. It doesn't mean the end of everything. It means the end of living in chaos. And being willing to simply say, I wonder what that is that I'm not seeing. It's the world. Same with everything. I'm not going to mention some of the main problems that are going on, or they are opportunities. And if those of us who know how, not everybody knows, not everybody understands that it's a game and that it's about projecting the contents, the hidden contents of your unconscious, that you're not integrated yet, onto the scenario around you.
Can I ask, because it feels to me that what you say about just noticing when you get triggered, noticing when someone, whatever happens, for me, it almost feels like just the awareness of knowing that is the case is enough, instead of getting bogged down in what are the details of that? What exactly in that person is triggering me? What could it be in me that's all of that? And you can get really stuck in that. For me, it seems like my life changed a lot when I realized through astrology that it's all me.
It's all you, yes.
Yeah. So I didn't have to actually get bogged down in too many details about that. I just knew that it's all me. So then it's an automatic sort of withdrawal of projection in a way.
Exactly. There is one person. There are not millions and billions of people who have apparently died and people are not yet born. There's one. This is the truth of Advaita Vedanta, non-dual life. I love it, playing it. And most of the times when you start to really withdraw projection and are curious about it, life takes on such a different, it's like a complete different story. But yes, you just have to become aware that it's all you. There is no other. That should be emblazoned across everybody's forehead. There is no other.
That brings me to the next point, which maybe would be a good one to end with, because when we do that, when we withdraw the projection, when we overcome problems or whatever it is, but not by overcoming them, by tackling them down to the ground and all of that, but realizing that we can transcend these issues, whatever it might be, whatever addictions, whatever problems, whatever things. The sixth house also, funny enough, is one of the best places to put Rahu. Actually,
yes, I read that. Yes,
right. So in the third and sixth, so they're called Upachaya houses of improvement. So ultimately, actually shows in Indian astrology, the sixth house represents, yes, the six weaknesses of man, they're related to that, but it also represents the siddhis, or the psychic powers. So it's kind of like, it shows like our weaknesses, but it's also our strengths when we overcome our greatest weaknesses, basically. So how would Rahu relate to all of that? Because obviously our conversations about Rahu all is this extreme. It's either impossible or easy, but now relating to it like weaknesses, addictions, and all of that, and then psychic powers.
It's the union of opposites. It's, Jung used to talk about the union of opposites, and that is alchemy. You put what is true and beautiful together with something which appears to be a lack, and the whole thing is collapsed. There was a friend of mine, her cat died, and I remember knowing I had to ring her up and say, the answer when to death is put your attention on the experience of presence. Sorry, put your attention on presence in the midst of the experience of absence. So when you're feeling at your worst moment, look for the presence, and that's always in the heart. You know, they say the darkest hour is just before the dawn. It's a little folk saying, but it's the truth. If you will go to what you really want in the middle of the apparent absence and judgment that is never going to be yours, you're free. This is freedom. But you've got to learn to play the game. The ocean is always still beneath the most enormous tsunami. At the bottom, there's a stillness. And you could be in heaven or hell at any moment, according to where you place your attention. And it flips, and it's a knack. It's just starting off, you say, well, I don't feel it, and it seems like rubbish. But if I put my attention where I'm, an experiment, you will find that it's an allowing. Choose what you want, choose the state that you want, and then allow. Unite the opposites, or rather, you can't unite them. You can allow them to produce the power. You put a positive wire and a negative wire together, electricity in neutral in the heart. You put positive and negative together. Bingo, what do you get? Pure Shakti.
You know what? You've done it again. You've done it again, Kishori.
I do.
You preempted our next talk, but you've seamlessly moved from the 6th house into our next conversation. Hopefully we can have a conversation about Rahu in the 7th.
Yes.
It's all about union of the opposites.
Oh, really? All right.
It's all about me and you. It's all about this and that. It's all everything in relation to everything else.
But that's perfect, isn't it, to follow on from the 6, because the 6, as long as you don't, all the while you don't see it as an opportunity, and you stay at one pole, like Rahu says, do not scurry to one pole, my children, as if afraid of the dark. I have no opposite. Open your eyes and see. I have no opposite. And it's a game. It's all a game.
That is so powerful. And for people to hear that, especially those really impacted by Rahu, if they're in a cycle of Rahu, a transit is like affecting them in a strong way, because we, as you say, it can feel like that it's that extreme, but there is no, other or whatever.
You won't get there by the mind alone, though. You have to explore what is the embodied heart. And you can begin by just breathing, putting your feet on the ground, hand on the middle of the chest. Sit quietly and feel it. And it will gradually bring you down. It releases some serotonin or what. There's all sorts of scientific explanations, but actually it's a frequency where no problems exist.
And when you think about how, because this makes so much sense, and I think it's coming together nicely in terms of when we go into the Rahu in the 7th now, and this union of opposites, apparent opposites. And Rahu, in a sense, you could see it as residing above the crown chakra, and that the south node Ketu is opposite below the root. And of course, the midway point between those 2 points is the heart.
Yes. Right.
You know what I mean? So this is exactly from an astrological point of view. I remember Camilla Sutton, she said that to me once. I was at some class, I think, and she was referring to the only way out is through the heart.
Yes.
So
yes,
it's nice to be able to actually, because I knew that intellectually when she said that, I understood that the only way out is through these 2 extremes, is through the heart. But I'd never had this simple practice of putting your hand on your heart or embodying it as you do.
Yes. Yes. It's magic. Once you get the hang of playing any game, juggling, for example, once you really get the hang, and it has to become innate. You can't think it. You can't say, well, I've done that. Well, I've read that. I've understood that. You don't know it. You don't know until it becomes innate. And that's why an archetype is not a human being. An angel can't become, the stories, they have the movies about angels giving up their being an angel in order to be a human being. And how they say that the greatest, the most precious gift of all is the gift of a human birth. because it's that point in the center where the absolute, if you could say the absolute, desired anything, its natural state is to express. Love's natural state is to express. It can't, so life will never end. There'll always be some form, and different dimensions or whatever, there'll always be life. And if you come to that point of central balance, the equilibrium of taking a human birth and learning, experiencing, not learning, I don't like to use that word, but the experience, when it becomes innate, I don't know yet. It's so exciting because I don't know what's going to become, what is becoming of my body. I know potentially, but I haven't tasted everything. So I'm not ready to pack this up. Wow, what a game. But even the difficult things, the things which we experience, it's only because we've got stuck. The seesaw has stopped, and with one end down. And it's got to stop when you're in the pinpoint, the absolute precision, the place that I think Archimedes talked about, give me a place in which to stand and a fulcrum and long enough and I will move the earth. You can move anything, even the greatest addiction. And anything we've ever heard about, say, I haven't got the power, but I could, Jesus raising someone from the dead, or, Yogananda, he asked his guru if he could put on a few more pounds because he was carrying more embodied presence if he were a bit fatter. And he did it overnight, click, and he did it. We can all do these, all these siddhis, but only from the place of it not being urgent, not being emotionally necessary, not being, I can't be happy unless. You've got to practice. So practicing that pinpoint, the absolute precision, that word again, precision of being in balance at the center. And then you can laugh at it all because it does become a game. I promise the worst addiction of all, go to your heart, imagine yourself without it, imagine yourself with all the situation wrapped up in a beautiful golden filigree cloth and put it in your heart, go and do something else. Doesn't matter what. And you will find that the whole tightness around everything eases. So Rahu in the 6th house, for me, is a condensation of all of the potential difficulties with the opportunity of freeing yourself, really liberating, real moksha from the liberation of believing that you are stuck with that. You're not stuck with anything. It's a knack. It's a willingness to let the mind allow you to know, oh, I am sovereign of my life. And I'm here to experience that. Is it a game?
I needed to hear that today, Kishori. I really needed to hear it today because I won't go into the boring details of my own struggles recently.
It's not boring ever. It's somebody else's game. It's fun.
I know, but it's just a game. It's just a game. And it's just really always such a relief. And I always feel like I'm a cork that's bobbing up to the surface every time I speak with you. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a delight to play like this. It really is. Love being able to say how it is. I love it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, catch you again next time.
So thank you to Kishori for coming on to the show again and speaking about the 6th house. And I look forward to our conversation about Rahu in the 7th house next time. In the meantime, if you'd like to check out Kishori and what she does, you can join one of her groups online as well. You can go to her website. It's magicmakeover.com. That's magic with a K, MAGICK -makeover.com. My own website here is timelineastrology.com, or you can go to patreon.com/timelineastrology to support my work and to go deeper with the astrology. So once again, thank you for joining and listening all the way to the end of this podcast. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time.